It was hot that night in the city of thighs. Hotter than overly microwaved pizza cheese burning the tongue of a topless swimwear model at a whipped cream convention in Paraguay. My cheap suit, my cheap hat, and my cheap similes stuck to me like superglue sticks to everything but what you're trying to fix. I had just finished the case of the enraged dwarf and the sexual trampoline apparatus incident and was heading back to my offices in the village. The streets were filled with the sort of variety you only expected to find in a package of different miniature cereal boxes, and a relatively pleasing hum filled the air, which was pierced only by the occasional ambulance siren, dog bark, or loud orgasmic exclamations coming from the infamous all-you-can-bake-and-fuck Big Pie Emporium on East 8th Street. Entering my building, I immediately whiffed that unmistakable smell of axle grease, caramel shortbread, and slowly dying raccoon that could only mean one thing.
Brian, you son of a bitch!
I had met Jeff in the army when fighting abroad. She was mouthing off about the state of the war, and Jeff, who had narrowly avoided being drafted due to him having flat knees and a gammy face, never could back down from an argument. Hey, Jeff. How are them plums?
Bigger than ever and ready to pickle. Just got a fresh batch in the other day, and the wife is on me like a dog on a hydrant to get them pickled, sauced, jarred, and shipped.
Doesn't take a detective to figure that out.
Oh, the raccoon smell. Yeah, well, you know how it is, Brian. In the sack, the wife is a bloody animal, and often, just to make the point, covers herself in bloody animals. Plays havoc with my sinuses, but gets her going like an overly enthusiastic baker in a department store shoe department at low tide.
That doesn't make any sense, Jeff.
Yeah, sorry, old bean. My similes seem a bit off today. I ate haddock yesterday. I'm almost sure that must be it.
So why don't you cut to the chase? I'm busier than a randy postman in the red light district at Christmas, and I've got a lesson on how to be more hard-bitten at 4.
Well, you see, Brian, it's like this. I seem to have got myself into a spot of bother. It all started last April in Taiwan with a drum of industrial car wax, a large feathery hat, 3 gaily coloured pairs of fishing waders, and a truckload of defective sex aids.
Sounds like to me, Jeff. You better come into my office.
That was a clip from Melodox Sprang's new exciting radio play, Brian Lane's Insane Brain Drain Train to Pain, that will be airing on Radio Flange Goblet early next spring-autumn in 14 parts with a Christ Easter special to conclude the story's cliffhanger ending in winter-summer-fall sometime in 2015 days' time. And now on Radio Flange Goblet, it's time for this word,
Slobberdigullion.
And the after-movie diner, which this week comes from the backside of Shirley Bassey's Bring a Rocket in a Sling Pantry in Soho's bustling West End city centre. The music is racy, the steaks are lukewarm, and the maitre d' likes to do unsanitary things to a spit roast chicken dressed as Lech Wałęsa while yodeling the national anthem of Chelmsford.
I think you just don't really know until you eat a whole one unshaved.
Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the After Movie Diner, and it is sincerely thrilling that we are back so soon. I do really love it, Marjorie. And before we get into the main meat of the pie of this week's show, I just wanted to say, please do go and listen to Panic Stations UK, hosted by the always excellent Chris Jones. It's available on TalkShoe and iTunes. It's Panic Stations UK. There is also a Facebook page for it, so please do check that out. It is a mental health podcast where people who suffer from anxiety, depression, mania, PTSD, all sorts of different things, talk about their experiences, share their stories, open up to Chris, and basically open a dialogue that will hopefully make the listeners either feel less awkward, less alone, or indeed just help them in some way. That's the hope. That's the desire. Anyway, please do go and listen to Panic Stations UK. I did my very own 3-part episode, no less, which you can check out. I also put that up on the After Movie Diner podcast page under guest spots. So if you search guest spot on amdpodcast.blogspot.com, it'll also come up there. But please do go listen, and rate and review Panic Stations UK, hosted by Chris Jones. Fantastic mental health podcast. Incredibly interesting and incredibly valuable. Thanks so much, Chris, for your hard work on that. And I do hope more people go and check out your show. And what an episode have we got for you this week. It is my decided thrill to welcome back onto the show two of my favorite guests to cover two incredible films, I think, enjoyably incredible films. You all know him as the king of comic books for the After Movie Diner. It is the incomparable David DeMoss. Hello, sir.
Hello, John, and thank you for having me as always.
And to join us, because I cannot cover a Robert Rodriguez film without him, my cohort in all things action, it is indeed Dr. Action, Mr. Paul Crowson. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, and your good self?
Oh, you know, we get on by. We do what we can. We muscle on through. And the two films that we'll be covering this evening is 2005's Sin City and 2014's Sin City, A Dame to Kill For. We'll start, I imagine, with the original Sin City. But I take it everyone saw Sin City, A Dame to Kill For in the theater this year.
Correct. And after a 9-year wait, you bet your ass I did.
Yes, indeed.
So opening day.
We'll get on to whether that 9-year wait has sullied Sin City or improved it or kept it the same. We will get on to that towards the end of the show. But first, let's go back into the mists of time and 2005, which shouldn't feel as long ago as it does.
Right.
But I was living in another country, in another town, with another life when this movie came out.
Goldie's dead. I've been framed for murder, and the cops are in on it.
Open up, police.
I'll be right out. Looking for Nancy Callahan?
Eyes to the stage, Pilgrim. She's just warming up.
Made a terrible mistake. We need to get out of here right this second.
This clown's out of control. I followed him here to make sure he didn't hurt any of the girls.
Us helpless little girls.
It's time to prove to your friends that you're worth a damn. Sometimes that means dying. Sometimes it means killing a whole lot of people. Walk down the right back alley in Sin City, and you can find anything.
So, Doc, let's start with you. When did you first become aware of Let's Go to the Graphic Novel and Mr. Frank Miller? When were you first aware of that, sir?
When I was first aware of the graphic novel, it was when I was growing up, but I never read them until I watched the first film.
And David?
I have a long and storied history with Mr. Miller and his work. He is, in many ways, one of the few creators most directly responsible for the tone and content of most modern superhero books, pretty much entirely by accident. So, I bought most of these when they first came out in the middle 90s. The first one was published in 95. And honestly, I was both waiting and dreading a Sin City movie ever since, because the material is plainly inspired by movies. And so the translation of it would be easy, you'd think, right? But as always, the universe has a wacky sense of humor about such things.
Is the content inspired by movies, or is it inspired by pulp noir that was then turned into movies?
Both. Frank Miller is, as you can probably imagine, quite the fan of noir sensibilities. And the thing he's most famous for is, in fact, bringing that into the urban vigilante superhero subgenre. He moved it away from that pop art, bright primary color 60s feel that most of comics and Marvel in particular had for the longest time. But then starting in '79, when he got a steady gig there, he brought German expressionist feel to things. So you get lots of those solid, deep, dark backgrounds with lots of silhouetted water towers and piping steam, all that good shit.
Yeah. And Doc, when you first went to see the movie, was it because you were a fan of Rodriguez? Was it because you were a fan of film noir? Or was it just because you'd seen the trailer and you thought, I want me some of that?
I kept up to date with what Robert Rodriguez was doing, as in luring Frank Miller into making the film. And I thought it would be interesting. But I was just more a Robert Rodriguez fan and just wanted to see what he was doing next, because I just think whatever he tackles usually is, A, it's violent, and B, it's interesting. So
For you, it's really the violence, isn't it, Doc? Let's be honest.
Well, yeah, definitely.
And before Sin City 1, it'd been like a 2-year wait since Once Upon a Time in Mexico. So personally, as speaking for Robert Rodriguez fans on this side of the Pacific, we were getting impatient. We were waiting. We were like, come on, man, what's up? What's doing? And turns out, he was luring Frank Miller out of hiding, which he needed to do, because apart from comic books, Frank Miller is also responsible for the original scripts of RoboCop 2 and 3. And as you can imagine, the experience of working on those films really sullied him to the whole process of moving it. Because his original scripts for those films were pretty much nothing like how they eventually turned out. And so, after that, he pretty much swore it off. Swore off doing anything or letting any of his comic books out of the gate, into the Hollywood cesspool. But Rodriguez came to him with the thing that leads off Sin City 1, the customer is always right. And it was a little proof of concept, that you'd call it. And Miller was apparently so impressed, and he was like, okay, fine, go for it.
So, David, when you first started watching the movie, how long before you relaxed and realized, oh, okay, Rodriguez has got this and he's figured it out?
Exactly 1 second.
So the opening Josh Hartnett killer bit with him and is it Shelton? What's her name?
Yes,
Shelton.
Who went on to be in Grindhouse, of course. That opening sequence, that sold you on the whole movie?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Because that sequence, and indeed most of the film, is translated right off the page. If you can get a copy of the short story collection that originally appeared in, and you open it up and you'll see it right there. And indeed, both of these films, one more so than 2, because 2 has some original written for the screen elements, but both of these are, I feel pretty secure in saying, the most faithful adaptations of a comic book that Hollywood or any movie studio anywhere has ever produced. With the possible exception of something from Japan that I haven't seen yet.
And I'll throw it open to both of you. Do you think it could have been done a traditional way, meaning he makes a traditional noir, episodic noir, but he does it without it being black and white with the odd splash of color, without it looking like the pages of a comic book? Do you think he could have done it a traditional way, or do you think this is the better way to have tackled it?
Doc?
I think it's perfect the way it is. I don't think he could have done it any other way. I think it's the best. I think it's the best use of a CGI background that's been done, personally.
And I certainly agree with that. Though, really, it doesn't really have that much. What competition we got? Like Sky Captain and The Spirit.
Star Wars prequels.
Yeah, Sin City wins.
How dare you bring that up, sir? You're going to have to perform an exorcism.
Because I think that, I like it. Stylistically, I like it. I've got no problem with him doing it. I think the reason why this is more successful done as if torn from the pages of a comic book rather than trying to reinterpret the source material as a traditionally filmed noir, a la sort of Farewell My Lovely or something.
Good one. Yeah.
The reason why this works is because it's episodic, and therefore you're more likely to accept the darting around that it does and the very sort of quick introduction of characters that it does, one after the other, certainly within the first kind of 20 minutes of the film, than if it was a traditional movie. You'd need it to be more linear. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And therefore, I think that the black and white and the style and the voiceover and the fact that it so acknowledges that it's a comic book or a graphic novel, that I think that's why it works. I think, as I say, if you were to do it more traditionally, you would need to completely tear the guts out of it and try and write it as a linear story, which would be possible, but sort of almost way more difficult and probably less satisfying for the fans.
And that was, and for the creators as well, that was the fear that Miller had for the longest time, that they'd have to, break the whole thing down and build it back up again. And yeah, for the fans, part of the appeal of the whole thing was its non-linearity and the way that each story interconnected with each other in ways that encourage fans to piece it together their own special way.
Yeah,
there are timelines upon timelines.
Yeah,
let me tell you.
And in a weird way, makes it the closest thing Rodriguez has done to Pulp Fiction. In a weird way.
Our special guest director noticed that as well.
Yes. Yes, of course, because Tarantino apparently directs a sequence in this movie.
The bit in the car with Dwight and Jack, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really notice the big change, but
right. I don't know what the hell that was. Was he just on the block that day? And
it goes back to Robert Rodriguez did the music for Kill Bill as a favour for $1. And Quentin Tarantino shot that scene for Robert Rodriguez and Frank Miller as a favour for $1 because I thought it might add some publicity to it as well.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
Well, I mean, as I say, it doesn't really add much to anything, but, I like that little cinematic back and forth. In fact, I'm on record as saying one of my favourite things about cinema is when you get a group of friends together, or you get a group of like-minded people together who seem to dig on each other's work or dig on each other's vibe, or actually personal friends. And I have no problem with the Tarantino-Rodriguez partnership. I think there should be more of it where it's actually a partnership. I think the problem with Grindhouse was they still went off and made separate movies. It would have been a much more interesting thing had they done A Dusk Till Dawn and maybe Tarantino write it and Rodriguez direct it or something like that, or both write it and both direct it. I think the that's where the interesting stuff comes from, in my mind, from the pairing.
From Dusk Till Dawn's definitely I think it's probably Rodriguez's best film anyway.
Yeah,
I love that film.
That's a tough one. It's a toss-up there between that and El Mariachi, but that's just because I think I like the idea of El Mariachi more.
Oh yeah.
Just because, but yeah, and I'd agree with you, John. The mix was off in Grindhouse. It was too apparent. There's too clear of a line of demarcation between the two.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, I just think if Rodriguez had come to Tarantino with the Planet Terror script and said, which is by far the better of the two movies.
Oh, it's that, yeah.
If he'd come to him with the Planet Terror script and said, go on then, like,
polish it up.
Yeah, Tarantino it up, like expand it out or whatever. And then they had shot that script together.
And burned the Death Breath script.
Yeah. And burn the Death Brew script. Because if I was reading the Death Brew script, I would just be like, why? Wait a minute, what? They're just still sitting around the table, 10 pages in, 15 pages in? Wait a minute, they're still... Oh, they're now sat around a different table? Oh, okay. Wait a minute, what's Eli Roth doing in this fucking mess? Yeah, I mean, at that point, it would have just been... I would have thrown the script away. Okay, so back to Sin City then. What do we think of the cast he's put together for this movie?
When 2005, when it was made, everybody was sort of like really hot property when the first Sin City was out. I mean, Elijah Wood was coming off Lord of the Rings. He seemed to be pretty big. Josh Hartnett was pretty big. Bruce Willis has always been around. The most surprising one, I think, was Mickey Rourke coming in as Marv.
Mm-hmm. That was that's a command performance, is what that is.
And he owns the film. He's great. And that, when you say talking about the overlapping timelines, it's so good because he's the best character. He dies in it.
Thank you.
It can still come back as he does. In part, he's a little bit in at the end of the first one, and he's back for a major role in the second one as well.
You've hit upon the keystone of the entire Sin City franchise. It's both its greatest strength and biggest weakness. Being how more interesting Marv is than pretty much anyone else. And Miller recognized this too, which is why he keeps appearing. And I'm pretty sure I know who his favorite character in this whole thing is. It's certainly all of them, at least all the dudes in Sin City, have a whiff of the self-insert fanfiction character about them, but Marv especially.
Because Rourke had done Once Upon a Time in Mexico with Rodriguez and then had appeared briefly in Man on Fire, but hadn't really done anything. I mean, he was in the Bob Dylan movie Masked and Anonymous. He was in Spun, which nobody saw. He was in
some of us saw it.
The Pledge and the Get Carter remake. I mean, he really was sort of languishing in the mire, and
nobody recognised him.
No, indeed. Well, I mean, Sin City, it has the benefit of, I think you said, Doc, this last time when Sin City 2 comes out, that the Marv makeup on him now actually looks better than his real face.
Yeah, I'd keep to that makeup now. I'd never take it off.
I'd go into the plastic surgery and be like, could I have this, please? I want this done to my face.
Make me look like Marv.
But no, he's incredible in it. And, of course, he has a little bit of a pedigree because, of course, one of my most favourite contemporary noirs of all time is Angel Heart. Absolutely love that movie. And of course, therefore, Rourke has something of a pedigree to him. And also, there was a ton of movies he kind of made in the 80s that, although they were contemporary, or even set in modern times, had the feeling of a noir. I mean, The Pope of Greenwich Village has a feeling of a noir. There's even some scenes in 9.5 Weeks where he seems to be out of time and seems to be from like the 40s or something. He had that vibe and look to him even then,
Yeah, helped out a lot by the great makeup work that they do throughout all of this. This is K&B work. Effects work. Those great, the house that slasher movies built.
Yeah.
And put the great effect here especially since the blood is supposed to stand out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really good, and I love the iconic look of all the plasters or Band-Aids, as you would call them, David, on his face, and how that sort of stands out in high contrast. I mean, I am a big fan of sort of high contrast photography, and so it's a bit of a lush delight watching Sin City and the way they've put it together. And it can only benefit the makeup effects because, of course, you can hide. Unlike something like Bubba Hotep, where they made Bruce Campbell up and they had to somewhat work out how they were going to film his aged makeup in what is essentially broad daylight. Something like this, which is shadows and contrast and all that kind of stuff, you can hide sort of a multitude of not sins but unfortunate cracks inevitabilities that happen
that always pop up in any movie.
And that happen with physical makeup versus versus any other CGI or whatever. Although CGI has its own pitfalls and so on. So Rourke definitely works as Marv. And you're right, Doc, it's interesting to see that a lot of the other people, Alba, Dawson, even Del Toro to some extent, Michael Madsen, I'm just going down the list here. A lot of them at the time, were much bigger and more relevant.
It seemed quite a steal to get all those people at that time for Rodriguez. Although Rodriguez does tend to get big stars anyway. There's no shortage of people who work for him.
Yeah, well, look at Once Upon a Time in Mexico. I mean, the big draw for that was the cast versus the plot of the film itself.
Right. He apparently he's fun to work for, and I can see everybody had fun on it.
And obviously sad, of course, because you have both Brittany Murphy and Michael Clarke Duncan, who are no longer with us.
Right. Oh, Discordia.
Yeah. In the short 9 years that we've had to wait for a sequel, or long, depending on your look at it, no longer with us. And of course, when I sat down to rewatch this time, completely forgot that my man Rutger Hauer was in it.
The cast's so good, you forget how many awesome people are here. Yeah. And in a great role too. I mean, he's perfect for Cardinal. Yeah.
And sort of the embodiment of ultimate evil, even though everyone in the movie is somewhat of a bastard.
Now, I'll contend that if you want ultimate evil, you got to go to Powers Booth.
Oh yeah.
Right, yeah. But
there are few people who play evil as cool as he can now.
But do you get the vibe from the first movie, though, that the Cardinal was in charge of the Senator, or the Senator was in charge of the Cardinal?
That is a very open question, yes. Yeah, go ahead, John.
No, I was just going to say, when I first watched it, I thought that Rutger Hauer was the main man. And since watching the sequel, I'm sort of thinking, no, I think he was probably just underneath him slightly.
Another one of Booth's pawns.
Yeah.
Well, they're supposed to be brothers, so I took it as a separation of church and state type of thing.
Sure.
The Cardinal deals with one racket, and the Senator deals with the other. And
that's a good way to look at it, because does the church wag
They're both
politics?
bastards.
Yeah, exactly. They're both bastards. Does the church wag the political dog's tail, or does the political dog wag the church's tail? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We don't know, or like you say, it might be separation of church and state, which is a great way to look at it. Either way, they're absolute bastards, played by two of my favourite, character actors of all time, really.
Fittingly enough, to run the worst city in this or any other world, absolute bastard would be on top of the heap, because what else would create such a flick? Can you tell that Miller moved to L.A. In his adult life and was very drunk and lonely and broke and miserable when he first got there?
Yeah. Well, all the great
subtle come across.
The funny thing is although people think of, New York City or maybe Chicago as these, dark, gritty cities, most film noirs are written about or in Los Angeles.
Well, Chinatown's set in LA, isn't it?
Chinatown set in LA. Farewell My Lovely is set in LA. The Big Sleep, I'm pretty sure, is set in LA.
Or you go just up the coast to San Francisco, which also hosted
San Francisco,
it.
right? Yes, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, it seems to be a West Coast genre, even though you would assume that, New York, especially, or maybe Chicago, would be better suited. But no, it's not about the skyscrapers necessarily or the back alleyways. It's more to do with these cities in the desert almost that have, especially in something like Chinatown, it's this city that's been built up in the desert and that's on fault lines, and there's all this sort of interesting topography and stuff, And
that shapes the moral outlook of pretty much everyone who inhabits it. The city, as the trailer for the second film says, this rotten city soils everyone and everything.
Everybody's got a dream there, haven't they?
Yes, and those will all come to naught. They will all be dashed on the cobblestone. Yeah.
Quite unfortunately.
And that's how we start, right? With not Harry Callahan.
Yes.
And let me say, back in 2005, Bruce Willis has always been great, but back then he would actually show up to work occasionally.
Well, you see, there is this thing, and you can see it throughout Willis's films. Actually, certainly over the last 15 years, and that is where he's interested, he gives an incredible performance. This, 12 Monkeys, what's another good example? Looper, I guess. I wasn't a fan of the movie, but he clearly was. I'll give you
that one, right?
Movies like that, where he shows up and he's interested. In movies where he is not interested, he can genuinely put in one of the worst performances of any big paid actor. But in and we're talking Cop Out, Die Hard 5, any of the movies he's made. Red was another one where he put in a performance that he actually cared about.
Which is really weird, because that, if anything, that does look like a studio film.
Yeah, but look at Red. Well, yeah, but look at Red 2, where he doesn't give so much of a shit, and it's not as good.
I've seen the press interviews for that, and he certainly didn't give a shit about it then, because he was a right miserable old bastard.
Yeah. It's really odd how he can kind of turn it off and torpedo his own movie. I can only presume they pay him up front, and then he goes, goodbye! But no, in Sin City 1, he is definitely there with both barrels and kind of loving it. He wouldn't be my first choice for the role. And it was interesting Rodriguez went that way. What do you guys feel about Willis in the role?
You go first, Dave.
Well, I think, personally, if I ruled the world, I would have made this movie in like the mid-'90s and cast Clint Eastwood. Because apparently, the way Frank Miller tells it, is all of this started when he walked out of the Deadpool and just hated it. I mean, dude sounds like a internet movie critic, like 20 years ahead of his time. He was like, and I quote, "This is not a Dirty Harry movie. That's not the last Dirty Harry story. I'll show you the last Dirty Harry story." And hence the yellow bastard. So, but Eastwood has made his own feelings about that clear. So, you're going to go with a second choice, then you might as well go with Bruce Willis. Because there are few people who can embody normal schlub hero cop quite as well as John McClane, really. Honestly, I couldn't see it any other way.
Do you not think he lacks a little bit of grizzle, or is he not meant to have too much because he's also meant to be a bit of a soft character too?
Compared to how he is on the page, there is a certain bit of that, but I don't know how much more you could add while still making it recognizable.
Right, okay.
And
Because, I mean, Eastwood would have been grizzle overload. I mean, Eastwood at this point
Yeah.
is just, you know, if there's any man left, I don't know, because it's buried under a pile of grizzle.
it's completely disappeared in there. That's why I said I'm thinking like Unforgiven Eastwood
Sure.
would have been perfect for this. But
That's when he kind of started on the road to maximum grizzle. In fact,
Exact.
if he makes another action movie, it just needs to be called Maximum Grizzle. And it's just him basically chewing scenery and tobacco at the same time, which is basically what Gran Torino was,
Yeah,
which is
it's exactly.
why
I was gonna say you took the words right out of my head.
I fucking love Gran Torino. I just think... And Gran Torino, in a weird way, considering what the character does and the character's motivations eventually, sort of mirror a little bit what Willis is doing in this film, or what his character does.
Yeah, but that Chinese like can't go dance like Jessica Alba.
No, unfortunately not. And he's not Chinese, is he? He's Hmong.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Just to get it culturally and ethnically accurate.
Oh, sorry.
It's also one of Sin City is also one of Clive Owens' long trench coat movies.
I love Clive Owen in this. I think he's great.
Well, I think if Owen has a trench coat, you
He's
can
good.
pretty much bet on the movie. If he doesn't have a trench coat, then you pretty much wouldn't bother
Might
with
as well write it off then. Yeah,
'Cause
I'd agree with that.
it.
Yeah.
You've got this. You've got Children of Men. You've got The International.
Shoot 'em up.
Shoot 'em up. I mean, he really had a good run of trench coat movies. That really you can't deny the power of Owen in a long coat. And in this one, he's having a ball by the looks of it.
Right. I certainly prefer of the two Dwights we have. I certainly prefer him in the role.
Yes.
Oh yeah, completely. And it's a shame. You know, we'll jump onto this in just a second. But it is a real shame he couldn't turn up for the sequel. A real shame.
Yeah. He's very much missed.
I'm not sure what Owen was doing that meant he couldn't show up for the sequel. Because is Clive Owen even working at the moment? What's he doing at the moment?
Whatever it was a poor excuse.
Oh, he's in the TV series The Nick.
The Nick. That's it.
But apart from that, he's been doing very little, really. He was in a movie called Blood Ties, which I actually got the screener for and watched and was meant to review, and I was like, I can't review this, it's awful. It was
One of those.
No trench coat.
no trench coat, and it was I should have loved it because it was a period movie set in Brooklyn, and I think in like the 60s or 70s or something, and it looked really great, but God, was it slow and plodding. I mean, it was, I think they were trying to do a sort of slightly updated, slightly 70s Boardwalk Empire thing, and it just fucking fell apart. It was awful. But yeah, I haven't seen the Nick, so I don't know. But you should have showed up for the sequel, Owen.
Right. Well, we've already got, they were going to have to replace one actor regardless, right? And I'm not saying he should have done the whole role, because obviously there's a reason why Dwight winds up with a different face. But still, consistency is nice.
No, you could have had. There's no reason why when Josh Brolin had plastic surgery, why he couldn't have stepped out as Clive Owen. It would have made more sense than what they did do.
Yeah, I mean, I read before it was being made that was the plan, to get Clive Owen back to show up as Dwight after the plastic surgery. Instead, they just stick a lump of plasticine on Josh Brolin's chin.
Do we know if the Willis images in the second one were Willis coming back to film those, or were they stuff that Rodriguez had left over from the first movie that he just, CGI'd
I
in
think
there?
he probably came back. He does look older.
Yeah?
Yeah,
I
he
think.
came back, but really, that would have been like a day. You know?
But if Willis can come back, is what I'm trying to say. Like, if Willis can pull his thumb out of his ass long enough to come back, then really, honestly, Owen, poor show, my friend, for not showing up for the sequel. Is there anything more that you want to say on the first one before we move on to the second one? Because we've had a nice half an hour chunk on the first one.
I think it's one of the best. It's going to be one of the best comic book. Everybody says that with watch some comic book movies and they say, "Oh, it's not like the source material." You've got to see Sin City just because it is the comic book put on screen. I've never seen anything done better in that terms.
Because, I mean, the other stuff is what? Stuff like 300 and...
Also Miller's.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, Miller's stuff in particular. So what are his big book-to-screen adaptations, then? You've Sin City, 300...
if you're talking direct adaptations, that's pretty much it. And,
The Dark Knight Returns is out as an animated movie now, isn't it?
correct, as is Year One, which he also wrote.
That's the one with Peter Weller, isn't it? That's the one
Yes,
I have to see because it's Peter
yes,
Weller.
it is.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about his influence, then you can lay every Batman movie for the last 20 years at his feet, as well as 90% of what's in the Daredevil movie as well. That was all his. Elektra is one of his creations. He's the first one who killed her, and pretty much exactly the same way she dies in the movie. Coloring's different, but that's it.
And I'm told that Frank Miller is my doppelganger.
I'd say you make that look good.
What's really odd is I was just going through some old pictures on a CD for Throwback Thursday on Facebook, and found one of me.
There's a picture of you on set with Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, no, and found one of me back in New York when I first went to New York in 2006, wearing a black trilby hat, a long black coat. And if you go to Frank Miller's IMDb page, it's exactly what he's wearing.
Yeah, that's him. But see, he's a doppelganger for pretty much every skinny, creepy old man that you pass on the street. Really?
Thanks, David.
Right, he's just
You're the family friendly version.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I love Frank Miller. No matter what you say about him, you don't feel bad.
So what do we reckon? The first Sin City success all round, yeah?
Yes.
I have to be a critic about it. I would say that after the high that is the Hard Goodbye, that it'd be pretty hard for anything to follow that. And considering Yellow Bastard and Customer is Always Right are the bookends of the movie, I was always kind of meh on The Big Fat Kill, both as a book and as its story adaptation. I'd say that one is a little weaker because of the company it's in, and as you know, if you take the movie as a whole, it can be kind of a uphill climb. You got to get over it. But Devin, there's buts for one thing, and for two, that's the weird problem with all of these anthology films. There's always one story that is kind of a little weaker than the other. And sometimes there's more than one, and the whole thing falls apart. You get a Tales from the Dark Side situation.
That's what's great about the Blu-ray, the DVD, when they did the extended bits. You know, you can go and watch the separate bits.
Yeah, it's very much like reading them in individual, like 6-issue miniseries in a whole chunk. Yeah, I do like that very much. But other than that, yes, rousing success, better than I ever hoped it could possibly be. And I waited for a sequel with bated breath, and instead we got Grindhouse.
But you see, I have to say about the first in fact, both Sin Cities, I like them, but I don't have any attachment to them. I like them, I watch them, they're enjoyable. I get a kick out of the cinematography and everything, but ultimately I kind of sit through them a little bit cold. I'm not engrossed or engaged with any of it, if that makes any sense. Not that that's necessarily a requirement for me, as I like any kind of just good entertainment. But I do find, because of its chopped up nature and because of its, you leap into every single character with both feet and you don't really have a time to develop any of them. I don't engage with it in the same way, and therefore it does kind of just wash over me. That being said, because I don't engage so much with the first one in a, I have no fanboy fervor from the books, but I do come at it as a film noir fan, so I appreciate the attempts to do that. That's sometimes border on parody, I have to say, but I mean it's still pretty decent and still enjoyable if you're a film noir fan. I don't therefore have the or understand the hugely negative reaction the sequel got, because to me, and this is a way to move on, but to me the sequel was to some extent more of the same. Is it as strong or as coherent or as overall pleasing? Nah, maybe not, but to me it was sort of more of the same, and I don't understand why the first one is heralded as this amazing classic and the sequel got dumped on from such a high height. I mean, I can only assume it's just become 9 years apathy.
You shot him in the gut. It wasn't me, Sam. It was the babe. It's rotten town. It soils everybody it touches.
This rotten town. It soils everybody. Everybody.
Tonight, I'm yours. You still want me.
It's tearing me up how much I love you and what I gotta do.
I've gone and done something again. How did I get here? How did I get here?
I told you you'd be back. You belong here. There's only Sin City. There's only Sin City.
Sin City's like a woman or a casino. Somebody's gonna win.
It's a good game. Good game. Who wants to play?
In the rain, in a leather jacket, I'm a killer, babe.
Need your help, Marv. Needs going up against a lot of guns.
Come in.
Show them who rules Sin City. Sin City.
4-inch heels, airbrush nails, back and forth on the stage. Couldn't keep my eyes off that killer, babe.
The goddess makes slaves of men. She owns me, body and soul. When she wishes it, we die.
Girls, girls, girls. Oh, babe. Girls, girls, girls. Oh, babe.
Nancy Callahan.
We never thought we'd stand a chance against the most powerful man in the state.
Don't avenge me, Nancy. It'll be the death of you.
Don't worry, I got this. At every turn, everywhere I go, all I see are killer babes. So I close my eyes and I get away, and all I see are killer babes. Your eyes are killer babes.
I need you.
Your lips are killer babe. Your moves are killer babe.
You be smart to kill me now.
She's a killer.
Kill him.
That means a killer babe.
This won't take you far.
Sweetheart, it's gonna take me to the moon.
I'm a killer babe.
Be a man.
I hope you don't mind me saying this, but that there is a dame to kill for.
What did you guys think of the sequel? Let's start with you, Doc.
Definitely not as strong as the first. Yep, it is kind of more of the same. I still enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it, but I did go in saying if it's only half as good, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Because I really do love Sin City. But there's a couple of one of the stories with Joseph Gordon-Levitt I wasn't so keen on. Marv being back's brilliant. The only thing I can really say was I wasn't particularly over the top on Josh Brolin. He does an all right job, but I just didn't connect that well with him.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that means I get to disagree mightily with the both of you. I actually liked it better than the first. Felt it hung together quite a bit, and I liked, and I even liked Joseph Gordon-Levitt's little story, because the Long Bad Night, both as a piece in itself, and because Christopher Lloyd cameoed as the ghetto doctor, who has to shoot up before he operates. That was awesome. That was another, one of those brilliant little cameos that they should have plastered all over the marketing thing. But I was honestly surprised when he showed up. It's been so long since I was surprised by a celebrity cameo. And I was so surprised I didn't even notice the waitress was Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
But
I did like it.
Me. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Darren.
No, I was just gonna say I did enjoy it. I'm not gonna sit here and slate it or anything. I just didn't find it as strong as the other stories. But I've only seen it once. I think when it comes out on Blu-ray, I think I'm going to appreciate it a bit more because I went in to the film.
Because you can zoom in on her titties.
Oh, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Yes.
There's no nudity in the second one.
Not the slightest bit. Yeah.
See, I would have to say that with Sin City: A Dame to Kill For, the one problem I probably had with it was the main story. All the other little stories I kind of enjoyed. I wanted to see more of Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Paris Booth and all that going on. I actually didn't give a fuck for Eva Green's story. Now, I'm not complaining about the vast volume of nudity she did. Not complaining about that at all. I just don't think that in other film noirs, one of my favorites is Farewell My Lovely. And obviously the woman in that, not to spoil the end of that movie, but really everyone should have seen it by now.
Right.
The woman in that is culpable. The woman in that is part of it. The femme fatale is definitely, obviously, a staple. And I think her being evil or her being duplicitous was blown far too early in the story, possibly, again, because of its episodic nature, that I just didn't get into it, and she just became annoying to me. Because I couldn't see a character arc there, you know what I mean?
More. I think that has more to do with its episodic nature than you might have even known, John. Because yes, that reveal is an end of an issue reveal in the original miniseries. You get to the end of issue. I think it's 2 or 3 out of 6, right? And boom. In fact, I'm pretty sure it ends on Dwight getting thrown out the window.
Okay.
There, and so that's supposed to be a cliffhanger. So you pick up the next book next month, right? And that is the one problem with being so faithful to your source material, because the material was not designed to unspool in a set amount of time in front of your face. You were supposed to be able to control the pacing yourself by turning pages or by picking up the next book or not.
It's the hook for getting you to the next issue.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Having Marv back, I liked having Willis back, having Jessica Alba's story being kind of fleshed out. You see, I think her story of the little girl that's all grown up, ready to avenge the death of the guy who saved her life, I think that's a much more interesting story than the Dame to Kill For story. I mean, it's just a much more compelling, and it may be my love of vigilante movies a la Death Wish or whatever, that I would love to see a female vigilante story, and I don't just mean the Jodie Foster movie, The Brave One or whatever that was. I would like to see a genuine one, and I think that they're, it's almost a shame this has to be a sequel that crams in more than one story, because I really could have gone for a fleshed out Jessica Alba as the avenging angel kind of story. Whereas, weirdly, there doesn't seem to be the substance in that story that there could be. They try and cram the substance into the Eva Green story, and I have no kind of relation with that. I have no kind of in with that, you know what I mean? It seems to be. It's also difficult because it's a prequel. This story that they're telling is both a sequel and a prequel, because the Jessica Alba story is a sequel and the Eva Green story is a prequel, and that becomes complicated while watching it. I think it kind of, I was sat in the cinema going, just go with it, just go with it, just go with it, because otherwise my brain would try to start to untangle where it all falls, and would not be enjoying the movie as much as I did.
That's also a major benefit of being able to put the book down and think about it for a second, so you're not distracting yourself with that. Well, you don't have to stop paying attention to do that like you have to do with the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I thought, for example, the fact that you only see Joseph Gordon-Levitt as a bit of a smug, know-it-all gambler, I thought it was very good the way that when Powers Booth cripples him, that you actually gave a shit, that you actually were emotionally involved in that you were actually like, no, don't, that Joseph Gordon-Levitt is such a likable screen presence even when he's being a bit of a twat, that you still don't want
especially there.
Right,
yeah.
But you don't want his hand broken, you don't want him fucked up, you know what I mean? You kind of want him to be able to survive and take that money away, and it helps that Powers Booth is such a fucking evil presence that you want to see him screwed over,
Oh, he was putting on a class. You put Powers Booth next to any other actor, and it's like he's a force multiplier there. I mean, Jesus Christ. Jessica Alba turned in a decent performance. Yeah.
But
how did this upside down, topsy-turvy civilization get started? It's
Do you know
what world am I in?
Do you know what else we get in this movie, though? Now, he's under heavy prosthetics, but we also get Powers Booth's doppelganger, Stacy Keach, briefly in the movie.
Yeah. I always think that's the same person.
I know, because they are basically the same person, but and both phenomenal actors. But yeah, Stacy Keach gives a performance under heavy makeup in this movie, and I'm glad, because had he just been Stacy Keach, I would have been like, wait a minute, Senator Rourke?
It could have been a good version and a bad version, twins.
I'm surprised they've never played twins in a movie. There's another guy who looks a bit like them, not quite so much, who was one of the bad guys in Breakdown, and I forget his name right now. I'll look it up. Anyway, guys keep talking about Sin City 2, A Dame to Kill For.
I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt's story may be a microcosm for the entire Sin City franchise, and perhaps also Frank Miller's view of his own life. I'm not so sure about that, but the way the gambler brushes up against and power and is crushed by it, even as he takes his own symbolic revenge. It just, there's something there, and revenge paralleling Jessica Alba's revenge. Nancy.
The actor I was looking for was MC Gainey. If you put MC Gainey, Stacy Keach, and Powers Booth all in a room together, my head would explode.
We could do a great cloning. Something about cloning.
Yeah, you really could. If you wanted a movie with three, older brothers. And you wanted it to look authentic, you could really, if you wanted to do an ancient Brothers Karamazov or something.
Ooh, there you go.
You really could cast Gainey, Keach, and Booth in those roles without issue, I think.
Multiplicity 2, the end of the death of death.
On a side note, how excited are you for Birdman? With Keaton?
I'll cautiously optimistic.
Oh, okay.
Shall we say?
I'm really looking forward to it. I'm a big Keaton fan.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. He's another one of those though. When he's interested, I'll have to wait and see whether or not he was interested in the project enough to actually show up to work, or just be a warm body.
No, I think he's definitely interested in the project. I think it's got him written all over it. I think he loves the parallel between him and Batman and him and Birdman, and I think he's acting it to the cheap seats by the looks of the trailer, I think.
Well, it's only been reviewed on IMDb, and I know it's nothing to go on with IMDb, but from the reviews it's 9.1 out of 10.
Well, there you go. Wait, how many is that? How many votes is that?
639.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, that's yeah.
Right, but you know what that is, David? That's all the critics or all the people who saw it at a film festival. That's all the people who would normally be tearing it down before it even got to the multiplex. So that's a pretty good sign. But I'm not going to go off on Birdman because I'm just too excited to see it. I'm really excited because I love Keaton, and If the man deems it worthy enough to run through Times Square in his underpants, I think he's on board. I think he's definitely on board. And I think we're about to see the greatest Keaton movie since Dream Team, which is his greatest movie.
Oh, that's a tall order right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and of course, Dream Team brings us back to Christopher Lloyd, who brings us back to Sin City 2, because all roads lead back to Christopher Lloyd or something.
He did invent a time machine, so yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, although unfortunately that did lead to a cameo in that fucking West movie directed by that asshole who makes Family Guy, Seth MacFarlane, who, despite producing the new Cosmos documentary and clearly being an intelligent sort, I fucking hate with a burning passion.
Well, that would be because he's an asshole.
Yeah, a smug, self-centered, just mouthy asshole. Can't stand him. Although he did sing a song about Helen Mirren's boobs, which weirdly got everyone in a flutter. Like, I don't understand why everyone got upset about that. I thought that song was perfectly fair game, but everyone got upset about it. But I get way more upset about the fact that they've now seemingly given him money to make movies, rather than him singing a song about boobs at the Oscars. Anyway, Sin City 2...
Boobs.
Lots of, yes, quite a few. But while we're talking about actors who didn't return, where the hell is Devon Aoki?
Oh, yeah.
She was pregnant.
Oh, okay.
Is that true,
okay.
Doc?
Yeah, she was pregnant. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not mine.
Perfect excuse. Yeah. Aw, that's too bad, though. Yeah.
Listen, he's already got 3 daughters. We don't need him procreating anymore.
I got told to stop.
Founding a dynasty, that's right.
What do we think of Piven and Maloney as the cops?
I thought they were really good.
It was interesting to see them there, to see them embodied. And they didn't necessarily, I don't know, they didn't necessarily disappear into their characters like some have. Like, I could see Jeremy Piven there. But yeah, very nice to see. Very nice to see.
And I wasn't sure, but were either of those meant to be playing Michael Madsen's role? Or is he a totally different guy?
You could have done that, yeah.
No, hang on. Michael Madsen is Bob, and I've got to go back here.
Doesn't somebody else take his role?
No, Piven's Bob.
So Piven is meant to be Michael Madsen?
You could say, no, you could do that. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
It was confusing because they both wore glasses, didn't they? And I was trying to... Yeah.
And they both had that, they both had that, it's an anime thing where the glasses become completely opaque. even when they're supposed to be clear, for more contrast.
But what do we say? Do we reckon it's Booth's and Rourke's movie? I mean, Powers Booth and Mickey Rourke, not Powers Booth playing Rourke.
But yeah, either way, you could do that. Yeah, you could do that either way. And yes, very much so. Because those two are the two sides of Sin City's coin. You have the money and power and corruption that goes with it, and then you have this particular brand of Paleolithic honor that Marv embodies.
Do you think that they take Marv's unkillability to sort of crank 2 levels of silliness, or are we okay with that?
Dude, I read comic books. This is nothing. Trust me.
No, I think he's great. I love Marv. The character's just fantastic. I don't care what he does.
I was a bit disturbed that we got to see Ray Liotta humping and pumping. That kind of bothered me a little bit.
Good. It's supposed to. You're not supposed to find that. That's not supposed to be sexy. That's not sexy. No.
No. I wasn't hoping it would be sexy. I was just wishing it wasn't Ray Liotta.
They could have brought in a bum double.
Right. Stunt bum.
Of course, Dennis Haysbert has the unfortunate job of stepping into Michael Clark Duncan's shoes.
And he was okay. Once I got over the fact that, oh shit, Michael Clark Duncan's dead, which I thought I'd gotten over already, but yeah, no. But he was okay with it. I mean, he sold those lines, and those lines are a tough sell. He had to walk a line, honestly, and he walked it well. I believed him in the role.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't know if that was possible, but
see, ultimately, though, I would have cast in both Sin City 1 and Sin City 2 Yaphet Kotto, but that's just me.
Ooh, there's an idea.
Yeah,
now,
you see? Because I remember that there are actors older than 40 years old, so I remember that there are people who are still fucking awesome in the older age range.
So I would offer up a counter proposal of Idris Elba.
Well, I know you would, David. I, on the other hand, because I haven't seen what everyone goes on about, what's The Wire, is it, that everyone goes on about him being amazing in? Because I haven't seen that, I've yet to see anything that Idris Elba has done that could convince me that he could ever do this role. So
I think he did. I think he did well with what he had. It's just a shame that Gary Coleman from Different Strokes was not around. he would have been perfect.
Yeah, Gary Coleman versus Mickey Rourke. The battle for the ages.
Out of the park.
Yep, that would have sold more tickets than Eva Green. No.
Eva Green and the poster controversy that never was, because I really don't understand between the one that everyone was so upset about and the one that they put out. I don't see the difference.
Underboob.
But ever so slight. I mean, it's not like in the second one you go, well, she doesn't have tits anymore. Like, she still has the same breasts in the first two posters. I don't...
It was, it was a fake controversy manufactured by the moms at the MPAA, as so many of them are.
But don't they understand that? I mean, unfortunately,
no,
it didn't actually work for this.
The answer is no, they don't understand.
Whatever the question is, no.
In fact, they willfully avoid understanding because they know better than us, than you.
So what do you feel then, guys, we'll start with you, David. What do you feel is the reason that this flopped so terribly then?
Because the first one really didn't get popular until home video. And the home video audience these days is perfectly content to stay home because they can. If they're not inclined to wait, they can just steal it off the internet. And why? And Are you asking why it flopped or why everyone shat on it in public? Because those are two different things. I mean, it flopped because it's August and because you can't show R-rated trailers or trailers for R-rated movies during certain time slots on certain TV networks. And it's everyone shat on it because they wanted to claim moral high horse.
Also, didn't it go up against Guardians of the Galaxy?
That too. That yes. There's that
okay.
too. Yeah. Yes. But well, yeah. Guardians provided an easy piece of contrast for everyone to say this is a comic book movie.
What they did was they put it out, I guess, as the adult alternative to Guardians of the Galaxy, not realizing that most adults today are well entrenched in their infancy and happy to go and see Guardians of the Galaxy multiple times rather than seeing Sin City once.
Correct.
And what's odd is that I neither hated nor liked Sin City 2 or Guardians of the Galaxy any more than each other. I thought they were both fine. I was not a Guardians supporter in terms of, whoa, it's the best comic book movie that's ever been made. I have to see it 50 times to download the soundtrack because I've never heard a song from the 70s before. I wasn't one of those people because I'm not 12. But at the same time, I didn't think it was the worst movie I've ever seen either. And likewise with Sin City 2, I thought it was a perfectly good sequel and well done. I liked the fact that it felt like no time had passed. It wasn't like there was any of that weird 9-year later feeling about it.
Right. I was worried about that going in too.
I think everyone looks pretty similar and pretty nicely replicated.
Jess Crowder's not aged.
No.
Right? Is she a vampire?
And, you know, it was just the... Eva Green, because I don't particularly like her as an actress. I don't think she's particularly great, although...
She's got a couple of good points.
Yeah.
And this is... And I'll fight you on that one, because, yeah, I can... I was so worried that they just fuck up Ava, because she's key to the whole thing. And if you're gonna get someone to be the femme fatale, then I've known Eva Green. I've pegged Eva Green for this since Casino Royale, honestly, and I'm glad somebody finally gave her a proper shot. For two people, actually, this is the year for Eva Green being evil, because she played Artemisia in the 300 sequel, and she rocked. She's the best fucking thing about that movie.
Nudity in there as well.
Yes,
not as much.
True. Not so much. No, not so much.
No, you're right.
But with Sin City, it's tough because this is very much the creation of one person's mind. That person can eventually become like an anchor chain around the whole thing. Especially if they go completely and utterly insane. And that's Frank Miller's problem. He is a loony of the most backward-ass, Paleolithic thing. 9/11 pretty much broke his brain, as it did with so many current and former New Yorkers. And, ever since then, he's had this bad habit of poisoning pretty much everything he's touched. It's like reverse Midas. That also propelled a lot of people's dismissal of this movie. Just because, it's Frank Miller. Fuck him. Because you want to talk about assholes? Oh, boy.
But apart from her and Josh Brolin, I have no problems with the sequel, really. I mean, not. I could go deeper into it, but why bother? It was what we were all wanting and waiting for, and I think it's a shame that it didn't get more business. Hopefully, it will do. Because Machete Kills didn't, and then this didn't. I like Rodriguez's autonomy. I like the fact he's able to be down in Texas banging out whatever he wants to bang out, even if it's hit and miss. I'd rather an artist be able to do that than not be able to do it at all. So I hope that these two strikes don't go against him being able to do that. although I'm sure he'll find a way to either go digital or to put it on his TV network, which he now owns, or to put it out on DVD or something. I'm sure he'll find ways. But I thought it was good. And as for why people shit on it, I honestly don't know, other than, like you say, trying to be superior, trying to find something to say just for the sake of saying it. I mean, it was so similar to the first movie that I think people, or critics or assholes, as I call them, probably just looked at it, well, we have to find something to say. It's terrible. It's not as good as the first one. It's awful. It's this, that, and everything else. You know, they just found a way to completely naysay it rather than to actually think about it for 5 seconds and realize that it was a worthwhile continuation rather than it's never going to blow your mind the way Sin City 1 did, because you've already seen Sin City 1. So you can't go in expecting that. You can only go in expecting more of what you got with Sin City 1, and that's exactly what Rodriguez delivered, with almost no visible, connecting marks, apart from Josh Brolin's transformation. And even that I kind of got over pretty quickly.
Right, yeah.
You go in hoping it's going to be just like Sin City 1 and not Sky Captain.
Right, exactly.
And in that respect, it's successful.
Yeah.
Because it's not Sky Captain.
No. Just like Machete Kills was a follow-on to Machete. Whether you like either of those movies is entirely up to you, but it was a continuation of the same. You don't watch Machete 2 or Sin City 2 and go, oh my God, they've changed it, they've ruined it. They've destroyed the original, because they haven't. It's all good. And nice to see Rosario Dawson back on the big screen. Don't know why she disappeared, but I like her as an actress. I have nothing more to say on the film other than I liked it, except for Josh Brolin's face. I thought everyone else did great. I thought Marv being back was wonderful. And Jessica Alba needs to now do, or Rodriguez now needs to make a Jessica Alba revenge thriller, proper, full 90 minutes, Death Wish woman style.
House in the Endless.
In fact, I would say that the worm would have finally turned, or indeed feminism would have finally washed up on Hollywood shores when we get the legitimate female version of Death Wish, meaning, the husband gets fucking raped and killed. Like, you go full the other way. Like, you
Deliverance.
Really
Deliverance style, baby.
Yeah. You go full the other way. You have, in other words, everything that happens to Paul Kersey's family or women or girlfriends or anything happens to the men in Alba's life, and she has to go, Paul Kersey, and she has to go fight down the bad guys.
See, the problem with that is if you do it completely opposite, that means that her husband gets raped by about 3 women, and she goes, "It's terrible what happened," and he goes, "Not really. I'm going back tomorrow."
Well, you can work with that too. Yeah, it'd be like reverse Medea.
Yeah. No, I mean, all I'm saying is we need. I think brave Jodie Foster, she tried to do it, and she tried to film it in New York, and it was all right. Did anyone see the Brave one?
Yeah, it was all. Yeah, but all right is about all it was. There needs to be one that knocks it out of the park.
Right.
I think it's got to be done left to somebody like Rodriguez, who's not going to have studio interference. Trying to.
Yeah, and if he's going to do it, I think he can do better than Jessica Alba. Honestly, I mean, she's okay. She turned in a good performance finally.
Yeah, well, you could have Cynthia Rothrock is what you could have, but that's not going to happen.
Now we're
Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren. In fact, the last time we got kick-ass females on the screen that weren't surrounded by a gaggle of cock was probably movies by. Oh no, because if you look at this, Helen Mirren's done stuff recently in Red and stuff, and there has been, Sigourney Weaver, and there are some female.
Well, if it's Rodriguez, he should be doing it with Michelle Rodriguez.
Oh God, that would be amazing. Yeah. I love Michelle Rodriguez. I loves me some Michelle Rodriguez.
Although it'll probably turn out it'll probably be Lady Gaga.
Oh fuck, Lady Gaga. There's another pretension vacuum that needs to be shot into space. No, I feel like we are in need of a strong female film that isn't a rom-com or isn't a sci-fi, but is just a proper straight action film. And I think Rodriguez is probably the filmmaker to do it, as there doesn't seem to be any feminist filmmakers out there at the moment for whatever reason. Because
there are, but they're all backpackers. Is the reason.
Right, but we haven't had it since Pam Grier or Cynthia Rothrock. I honestly can't think of any. You know, you've got Ripley and Aliens. I guess you've got, I suppose, Underworld series. But again, that's fantasy sci-fi. It doesn't completely count, unfortunately. I wish it did, but it doesn't. It's too much of a boys' fantasy. You know what I mean? It's too much of a leather-clad.
It's too much of a It's too much of a based on a role-playing game. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Kate Beckinsale in PVC. I don't know. You can say that's boys' fantasy.
Right.
No, I'm saying that Pam Grier became a man's fantasy, but she didn't make coffee as a man's fantasy. Quite the opposite. But the fact that coffee
it goes against really what she's doing. She was making that, you know, trying to kill blokes, and all the blokes were just like, whoa.
Right.
Right.
That's the thing that happens, and I suppose no one's going to stick up for Mila Jovovich.
Well, no, I mean, again,
her current collaborations, and that's fine. I'm not going to either.
But again, Resident Evil, is that not sci-fi fantasy? That's sci-fi horror fantasy, or whatever you want to call it. That's a genre movie can get away with. That's like saying that Buffy is. Well, but I mean, Buffy is, Xena is, but. It's not entirely what I'm talking about, because it's out of the realms of.
Yeah, you bring up a very good question. Why is it that ladies can only kick ass in speculative fiction?
Right.
Why when it comes to the so-called real world and grounded stories, why are we stuck with all of these gray-haired dudes who won Oscars 10, 15 years ago?
You know who I am forgetting, of course? Gina Carano in Haywire and In the Blood. Her later
another perfect candidate for a Rodriguez movie, I'd say.
Yeah,
Gina
definitely.
needs. That's what she needs.
Her and Rodriguez going at it, man, in Fast and Furious 6. Say what you like about the franchise, dude, but that was a kick-ass action sequence right there.
Indeed.
Yeah, it was the best action scene in that film.
That wasn't reliant on blowing up a fucking aircraft.
That's what I think that's what we mean, yeah.
That was just reliant on two people just fucking wrestling and getting it on.
Right. No tricks, no cheats, no expensive shit, nothing. Just a simple, purest expression of
it's awesome.
Which was what was good about it, because, you watch Fast and Furious 5, yes, you get the big end car chase, which is awesome, but you also get like The Rock versus Vin Diesel. You get like those little fights that you're looking for, that you're really excited about. And I'm hoping that Part 7 has just Statham versus each individual person, one after the other, killing them all. Yeah.
If that happens, I might turn around on the entire series.
Oh, David, you're wrong. It's a fun series. It's a good, fun, enjoyable action series.
Well, you're wrong. Well, you're wrong about all of Christopher Nolan's films, too.
Listen, I just sat down and watched The Prestige last night, and I liked the fact that the people in The Prestige actually talked like human beings talked. And I was like, what happened to Nolan after that movie was made, that every script he's written since, people talk like they're walking fortune cookies?
And that's a very good question. He doesn't do interviews, so I don't have an answer.
Right. He doesn't do interviews because I think from the interviews I have seen him do, he's probably one of the world's most boring people.
Quite possibly. A lot of.
And he looks a bit like a floppy-haired, potato-faced twat.
Like so many of them do. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know why we digressed, but it was fun nonetheless. So Sin City, are we up for a Sin City 3, or do you think that'll never happen? Have they exhausted everything now?
God, no. There's so much left. Oh, my God.
Yeah, they could do loads more. I mean, I'd still go in see it. I can't wait to get Sin City 2 on Blu-ray because I've only seen it once, and I'm really looking forward to, because I think I'll love it more on another viewing.
You will. That was my experience as well. I saw it twice in the theater just because I could, and because it'll probably be 10 years before I can do it again. So yeah.
Yeah. I should have gone again. But
a second viewing does help it.
Yeah, because I mean, I won't have as much expectation with the second one. I can just sit down and watch it. You know, like I do with Sin City now. I can just watch it any time I want, and it's just really enjoyable. So
I hope they do a double box set on Blu-ray, because I only have the original Sin City on DVD.
Oh, they will.
So I hope if they do a double dip box set on Blu-ray that I can pick up the whole saga and watch it as one big thing. That would be amazing.
Try and break it up into a linear story where you're actually following it. You've seen
right. Or just watch the two movies. Full chronological. Yeah.
Well, that would be great as well. I mean, I'd love that. I remember when Coppola tried to fancifully do that with the Godfather series, and everyone was like, "What are you doing?" I want to get me some Marlon Brando. I don't want to wade through ponderous long periods of De Niro and speaking Italian.
I'm fucking around with my own story, because that's what I do.
Yeah. Why?
And you gotta deal with it.
What is it about the movie brats of the 70s that are like that? They're just like, I want to tinker, I want to change.
Because films are never finished; they're only abandoned.
No, that's not true at all.
No, but that's the mentality that we're dealing with here.
It's like, I love Apocalypse Now. Absolutely love Apocalypse Now. Have never, ever in a million years had the desire to see the redo version, although I own it. I've never had it because I'm like, no, I love Apocalypse Now. I don't need to see, I don't even need to see anymore. It's already a 3-hour movie. Let's not over-egg the pudding here, people.
Yeah, go with that instinct. It will serve you well.
Yeah,
I've only ever seen the Redux once, and I stick with the original.
Yeah.
I mean, I have the complete dossier, or whatever they call it. That's the 3-disc Blu-ray edition, because I fucking love me some Apocalypse Now, but I've never put in the extended version.
You use it as a beer mat.
Yeah, the extended version. Yeah, I wipe my dick on it.
That's the perfect use for it. Yeah, it's a real extended cut of the original Alien situation, where you're watching it and you're like, oh, I see why you cut that out. You really shouldn't have put it back here. It fucks up the entire flow of the thing. You were just double dipping on this, weren't you? And that's why I forgive the extended cut of Alien, because Ridley Scott flat out says in the little intro he wrote in the DVD case,
I've got your money now.
Yeah, no, he's like, yeah, we did this purely because the suits asked me to, so they could say that they're slapping an extended edition on the cover of the DVD and get everybody to buy it again. So,
well, I have the quadrology, which has both editions of every movie. So, and I've never updated it since then. I mean, that came out, I think, 10 or 12 years ago, that quadrology box set, and I've not updated it since.
Blu-rays are exactly the same thing. They just upscale it.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I've never double dipped on that, because that box set for me has always been fine. And I think maybe the director's cut of Alien 3 is worth its inclusion, but any other director's cut is really pointless.
I'm saying that you wait till you see the director's cut of Fast and Furious 6. Because, you know that Gina Carano, Michelle Rodriguez fight?
Yeah.
Do that in jelly.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, I don't know how they did it down those fucking stairs of the underground. I mean, they
jelly
must have had,
slide easier.
Yeah,
Very careful.
Yeah, I was going to say they must have had either padding, or they must have padded the stairs or something. It was pretty hair-raising. Anyway, guys, listen. Thanks ever so much for running through Sin City 1 and 2 with me. It's been a decided thrill and a pleasure. Always fun to have two of my favourite guests on the show together at last, discussing these movies that I feel get unfairly criticized. So wonderful to put the world to rights. Do you have any final points or final things you would like to say, David?
When you got a condition, it's bad to forget your medicine.
And Doc?
I can't compete with that. But thank you for letting me be in this episode. Talking to you guys is fantastic. So thank you for letting me into your little comic book world on the After Movie Diner.
Oh, it's absolutely fine. It's a crossover movie. It's both comic and action. So it makes sense that I have you both here. And lastly then, David, I suppose it's only down to you to tell everyone where they can find you. It's free plug time.
Thank you, John. As always, yes, excellent to be here. And everyone can find me at my website. And you thought it was safe. That's aytiws.com. where I do this, but without two other British people.
And, what videos have you got coming up, David, that are you doing?
Oh, God. I mentioned this on Facebook, but I'm going to do it again, because, Jesus Christ, the Amazing Spider-Man review is 10 pages long, and I think it's just about finished.
Wait a minute, is this The Amazing Spider-Man 2?
Yes.
This is the movie that I tried to watch, and the first 5 minutes so enraged me as it made every single possible mistake that I loathe about modern cinema that I picked it up and threw it out of my DVD player.
Yes.
Okay.
It gets worse from there.
Okay.
I don't mind it.
Oh, you would. Oh, yes. That is because you have not seen me rip the entire thing apart.
You had, in the first 10 minutes, as far as I could figure it, you had shaky cam, badly done. You had CGI that looked worse than Raimi's original CGI, which I didn't understand.
Continuous throughout. I understand. I think we can blame Transformers 4 for that.
Well, it just looked... No, I tell you what we can blame. We can blame the quick turnaround of the sequel. They should have just given it some more time and done about 3 more passes on the rendering. Because it looked like a fucking cartoon. In fact, Spidey and Friends from the fucking 70s looked better. Then you had the... atrocious fucking, how do we get him to break up with Mary Jane bullshit? Because we haven't had that enough in any fucking movie. At which point I was just about to fucking stab myself in the face. Not to mention that Andrew Garfield still can't play the role properly, and him being some hipster, cool head fucking version of Peter Parker makes me want to throw up. So, after about 10 minutes, I was done with the script. I was done with the way it was shot, and I was done with the effects. So I was like, right, I'm done.
You go with that. And yes, and I suppose our Spider-Man retrospective is off then. Or are we just going to do the first 3?
No, well, we'll definitely do the Raimi movies when I don't know so, but we'll definitely cover the Raimi movies at some point. I've kind of missed being able to tie it in with Spider-Man because of my schedule got all fucked up. But
just do the first 2.
Yeah, well, no, you see, because I might surprise some people about Spidey 3. So,
and I will surprise no one.
Oh, you love it.
And really, the problem, all of Spider-Man 3's problems were present in the source.
Yeah, it was made.
It's all of a piece.
I can spell up the problem with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man series as a whole in 2 words: James and Franco.
Dane DeHaan, significant upgrade in the Harry Osborn department. Sadly underused. Indeed, yeah. But I'll get it.
And maybe as a second 2 words, Avi Arad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think had Raimi been allowed to do what he wanted to do, those films would be considerably better. Although a lot of people blame Raimi for the emo Peter Parker in the 3rd one. Certainly better than the fucking Topher Grace. I mean, Christ almighty. Topher Grace. When your name is Topher Grace, you should be locked in a raffia work bag and hit with sticks. Okay, so that wraps it up for yet another comic book edition of the After Movie Diner. And it only remains for me to say, Thank you very much, David. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you this afternoon. Thank you very much, Doc. It's been a very real pleasure to speak to you this afternoon, and we will have you both back on in either separate or joined capacities in the future. Thanks again. We're out. Like the show? Well, you can find our complete podcast archive over at amdpodcast.blogspot.com or aftermoviediner.com. You can send us an email at aftermoviediner@gmail.com, tweet us at aftermoviediner, or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/aftermoviediner. Or why not be a part of the show and leave us a voicemail over at speakpipe.com/aftermoviediner. You can also support the show a number of ways by spreading the word to family, friends and co-workers, by writing us a review over at iTunes or TalkShoe, by purchasing some excellent Diner merchandise over at cafepress.com/aftermoviediner, by donating on our website, by advertising with our website, or maybe you're a regular Amazon user. If so, then before you make a purchase, go to amdpodcast.blogspot.com, aftermoviediner.blogspot.com, or aftermoviediner.com and click through the Amazon banner ads. It costs you nothing extra, but they throw us a few coins for the trouble. Or, like the movies we cover, then buy them over at our personal Amazon store, also on amdpodcast.blogspot.com. Really, thanks everybody for everything you continue to do, and please keep listening.
There are men, and then there are second unit podcast men. The podcast you've just been listening to is part of the Second Unit Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at 2upn.blogspot.com or on Facebook under the Second Unit Podcast Network. Our fantastic list of shows include Drunk on VHS, We Came from the Basement, No Budget Nightmares, The After Movie Diner, Dr. Action and the Kick-Ass Kid, and Bloodbaths and Boomsticks. Take one podcast into the shower. Don't be a blithering idiot, Alan. We can give you the multiple podcast cleansing system all in one place that your hair deserves. Our programming is available across all platforms, from iTunes to Podomatic, TalkShoe to Stitcher, so you have absolutely no excuse. Listen today, and a free naked person of your choice will be shipped from Thailand to your door in a matter of weeks. The Second Unit Podcast Network, bringing you the action and leaving the boring stuff to the other guys. Bloody hell. Who does a girl have to blow around here to get a decent beverage?